Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today I saw this video going around TikTok actually. It's not like a brand new concept, but I thought it was pretty cute how they named it 10 before the end. So basically like 10 books you want to read before the end of the year. Essentially an end of year TBR. So I have 10 books on here. Ooh, just threw my pen. I have 10 books on my list that I want to read before the end of the year. Some of these have definitely shown up on TBRs previously. But yeah, so these are books that I really, really want to read before the end of the year. So this year, as far as the content I've made on this YouTube channel, this year I have definitely gone in a different direction a lot of the time. I've returned to reading more adult fantasy. I've returned to reading more YA. I haven't stuck strictly to romance, and I have enjoyed that immensely. And I think that doing that, which was almost at least a year-long process, it really made me very aware of how much I do read for content, you know? I think that's just the nature of being online and having any type of an audience or a platform, is that when you sort of make a side hobby of talking about things you do for your hobby and people start watching it and they start responding, you really sort of get influenced or driven to make content that's continuously going to get views. And not necessarily because it's a financial thing, it's just, it's nice to know that people are watching you and that they're liking what you make, you know? And myself, who is a top level performer of a people pleaser, that's been really hard for me to step back from and be like, I can't do this, I just can't do it, you know? So anyway, that combined with some other things I've talked about this year, it just really made me take a step back and think about, every time I pick up a book, is this actually what I want to read? Or am I reading this because I feel like I have to? Or because I feel like people want me to read it? Or for whatever reason? So naturally with that, I've been reading slower because that's just my natural way of reading. I am not at all a speed reader. I'm just not. Not because my brain can't process it, but because my life is extremely busy. Like, we're all busy, right? But I quite simply just do not have the time, or when I do have the time, maybe I don't have the mental capacity to devote to reading in order to talk about them in a way that I enjoy talking about books. So anyway, all of that to say, some of these books are probably not going to be surprising. Some of them maybe, but let's go ahead and get into it. So the first book that I have on this list that was on top of a video I made last year, which was historical romances I desperately wanted to read this year. And, well, I did not get to very many of those. But this one, I have actually already started, and it is happening. It is happening before the end of the year. Probably of all of these, this is the one book that I most want to happen, and it is Flowers from the Storm by Laura Kinsale. So I did start reading this. I'm only like a chapter into it, and then I got listening to audiobooks that I got from my library and things like that, because I own this audiobook and I own a physical copy, so I can read this at any time. But this is one of those books that has been so hyped up and that has been recommended to me so many times that I feel like a bit of hesitancy in starting it. So I started it very under the radar. Like, I didn't tell anybody I was reading it. I'm telling you, so y'all know. Mostly because I get feeling a certain kind of way when people are like, read that. This is why I, you know, like, which begs the question of, why do you even have a book platform if you're going to be like that? Like, I don't know. I can't tell you how my brain does the things that it does. Anyway, historical romance, classic historical romance, that's happening. The next book I want to read is one by my beloved favorite author, Laini Taylor, and it is Night of Cake and Puppets. So this is a little novella that takes place in the middle of the Daughter of Smoke and Bone world, and it is featuring Karou, who's the main character of that series, her best friend Zuzana, and the boy she meets and falls in love with, whose name is Mick. And she is an artist, and I think that he is an artist too, and it's just like, I have had this book for so long. I own it in all formats. I just recently bought, well, not recently, months ago, earlier this year when I reread the whole series, I bought a collector's edition of this, which is absolutely stunning and beautiful. And I own the audio, so I've been kind of holding on to this one because this is one of the few pieces of fiction of Laini Taylor's that I haven't read, and so it feels like a really special treat. But also, life is short, and I don't want to just hold on to things just for the sake of experiencing it. Like, why not just experience it, you know? Okay, so the next one is Foxglove. So this is the companion book, or the sequel, the next in the series to Belladonna, which I really, really loved. I loved Belladonna. I thought it was beautiful, and I was very excited for this book. And then I didn't hear specific spoilers, but I heard a certain type of feeling about this book, which really kind of made me less excited to pick it up. I hate that I'm like this, but I am. So I want to read this by the end of the year, because I'm afraid if I don't, I just won't read it. And it will be one of those series that I never finish, and I don't want to do that anymore. So this is happening. I don't know really anything about the plot. The first one is a Death and the Maiden retelling fantasy YA romance, which I really, really loved. So okay, so now I have 3 books that are rereads. I have really wanted to prioritize rereading this year, and I did reread to some extent. I reread, mostly the books that I have reread this year were some of my favorite YA books, just because I think they are fantastic storytelling. And in order for me to reread a book, I feel like it has to meet a lot of different criteria. It has to be excellent storytelling, it has to have great characters that I really love and care about, and it has to either present like ideas or thought processes, something to make me think about. Like, I very rarely will reread a book just because it's a really fun story. Most of the time I read those and that's enough for me, you know? But so that's one reason why I gravitated to some of those YA books, because I think they're very like thought-provoking, and they really create great character studies, and they're just great storytelling, beautiful writing, and books like that are hard to find, you know? So, however, I have been feeling like I really need comfort reads right now, and so I picked 3. 2 of them are my all-time favorite authors, and one of them is an author that I really enjoy a lot. So let's go ahead and talk about the rereads that I want to do. So the first one is Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas. I have been wanting to reread the Wallflower series because it's been so long since I read that series, and I only read it the one time. And after I finished the Wallflowers, I went on to the Ravenels, so I kind of have, ever since I finished that, which has been like almost 3 years, I've been wanting to go back and reread the Wallflowers, knowing what happens in the Ravenels and seeing the character connections, you know? But I want to start with Again the Magic, which is one of my all-time favorite books. It is absolutely beautiful, one of the most romantic books I've ever read. This is the book that made me fall in love with Lisa Kleypas. I think it is perfection. But again, I've only read it once, and I read it a long time ago, so I'm very excited to reread that. And I've had the audio for this downloaded. I own the audio as well as a Kindle version and the paperback. But I don't know why I haven't picked it up. I don't know why, but I really want to reread that one. Okay, another one that I really want to reread by an author that I love and adore is Bombshell by Sarah McLean. So this is her newest series. This is the first book in her newest historical romance series. I love Sarah McLean. I think she is such a gifted author. And if you don't agree, you're welcome to your opinion, but this is a Sarah McLean stan account. I love her as a person. I love her books. I think she's incredibly talented, and I think she's just fabulous. So, however, all that being said, this is one of my least favorite books of hers. So why do you want to reread it, Crystal? I want to reread it because I want to just experience the whole series, maybe back to back, or at least go back and revisit this, because I read an ARC copy of this right before it came out, and I remember I was so excited about it because this is the book that came off of her, the Wicked and the Wallflower series, and I love that series so much. And so I remember feeling a little disappointed in this book, but I still really, really thought it was great, but again, a little disappointed. So I want to reread it just to kind of, again, see those character connections that I have since found and learned more of with the next 2 books in the series, and also see if my opinion has changed about this. If I'm remembering correctly, I feel like this had a really slow build up to the story and the romance, which isn't always a bad thing. Like, I've been reading a lot of books that have that, and I personally really enjoy that. I prefer almost always a slow building story, a slow building romance. I want to have time to really get to know this world and these characters, and I want to have time to sit and savor like feelings and relationship moments, or even just anything about the book. Like, I love that. I love nothing more than that. So I'm really excited to get back into this and read it and see what I think about it. See if my opinion has changed. Yeah, so that one. And then the next one that I want to reread is The Making of a Highlander. So this is the first book in Elisa Braden's Highlander Magic series, which I love this series. This is by far my favorite series by her. I like her other series, the Rescued from Ruin. I haven't finished that all the way, but there are way more misses in that series than there are this whole series hits for me. Like, I love everything about it. This one is another one of those that I only read once, and I read it a very long time ago, and I don't remember much about it. And she finally announced that the next book, the 4th book, will be coming in December to this series. And I think it's been 2 years since she had a book in the series come out. And I don't know that I remember a whole lot of details about this series, so I want to reread the whole series, but I only put the first book on here because, once again, my mood is going to rule all. If I don't feel like reading a book, I'm just not going to read it. So, okay, so those are the rereads that I have. So then the next book that I desperately want to read as soon as possible is Merag by Christopher Paolini. Now, the caveat to this is that I have to finish Inheritance. I haven't finished that book yet. I've read the other 3 books, but Inheritance is the one book of his that I never finished, and then I kind of just stopped reading the series because my mood was calling me other places. So this one is really Inheritance and Merag, but I only put Merag on here because that one, I want to read that before the end of the year, for sure. Okay, so now this next one is kind of one that I just threw in here because it's one I've been really curious about, and it's short. So I feel like if I need that feeling of accomplishment of crossing a book off, this one will do it. And it is All Systems Red. This is a book I've heard a ton about. I have never read it. It's known as the Murderbot Diaries. I think that I know a little bit of what the plot is, but it's so vague in my head that I'm not entirely sure, so I'm going to kind of just go into it blind. I have the audiobook. It's a very short audiobook. It's a sci-fi book, and I hear that the robot character is fantastic. So I'm very, very excited about that one. And I think that one would be a really good, like, palate cleanser if I feel like I just need something very different. Okay, so now the next book is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. So in order for me to read this, I feel like I should reread Ninth House, because that's another one that I only read once, but I don't think I will. Because if I have to reread all of these books before I move on to the next one, I'm never going to get to the one I want to read. So I may just go and reread my review, reread plot synopsis, and just kind of go from there. Because, I don't know. I mean, I know the basics of this, obviously, but I'm sure there are details that I'm forgetting. Like, I know there are. But Hellbent, definitely want to read that. It's been on my TBR. It's been on my mind, like, all year long. Okay, and then the next book that I want to read, the last book on this list, is Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. This is the last Shadowhunter book that I have to read. This has been on my TBR all year. Again, a book that I just really wanted to get to finally finish the series. And when I finished book 2, it ended on a pretty serious cliffhanger where it felt like a lot of pain was coming for my characters, and so I kind of gave myself a break before jumping into it because I was like not sure if I was emotionally ready. But here we are, halfway through November, and I still haven't read it. So I have to read that book. I have to read that one. That one and Flowers from the Storm, those two are probably my highest priority. So, all right, my friends, there you have it. Those are the 10 books that I desperately want to read before the end of the year. Let me know if there is a book that you desperately want to read before the end of the year as well. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. I appreciate you being here. If you have made it this far, please feel free to leave me a turkey emoji, because Thanksgiving is next week for us Americans. And I'll talk to y'all soon.